A really nice practice is to sit with the unknown. Just sit with it. Just find a chair or sit down on a pillow and practice just letting your mind go and your body go, and just allowing whatever wants to come up to come up. And it's a great practice for allowing the unknown to come up, because we want to try and control ourselves, don't we? Control our thoughts and our minds and our discomfort. But how can we just be in that unknown? Oh, what will happen? What will happen?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Being Inspired Radio Show. I am your host, Amanda Johnson, and I am back with another guest this week who is certain to uplift, inspire, delight you. His voice alone just gets me going because he's got a great accent, and I always like talking with people with accents. And this is a guest that is maybe familiar to some of you because he has been on the show before, which is awesome, and he is back for round 2. And I love having the opportunity to get in deep with people who inspire me, who are out living their life from a place of love, from a place of service, from wanting to offer their gifts in the way that they know how to. And our guest today is certainly doing that, at least from what I can see across the pond through social media and through our conversations. So today I have once again Adam Palmer with us. And like I said, if you haven't already listened to our first conversation, make sure you go out and have a listen to that one as well. We get into some really good stuff, and I know this one will be just as uplifting, invigorating as the other. So Adam Palmer is a writer and transformational coach who considers himself a seeker, traveler, and someone who is finding his way and helping others do the same. Adam encourages people to take responsibility for their own happiness and well-being. As he likes to say, discover yourself and your potential. So Adam, welcome back to the show. This is fun.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me again. What were you thinking?
I don't know,
Nice.
but I mean, gosh, we just once wasn't enough, maybe twice. There will be 3 times. We'll just keep having these conversations.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Of course. I was actually talking with another guest the other day about what inspires me, and these conversations inspire me. And that is why I call it the Being Inspired Radio Show. One of the reasons is because having deep, meaningful conversations that get at the core of who we are and help us to remember who we truly are. I could spend all day, every day talking about it. And so it is such a pleasure and treat for me to get to share that with people like yourself. So thank you.
It's the best thing to talk about in the world.
I know. I honestly don't know how people can have any other type of conversation. I don't understand it. I mean, talk about the weather, sure, but come on, talk about who we are in our soul essence. Oh, so,
yeah.
Anyway,
we share the same passion. Yeah.
And those of you listening, I mean, either you just randomly stumbled upon this and, you're in for a treat and a ride if you stay with us, or you are like us and this stuff lights you up to your core. And if it doesn't yet, you're at least interested enough to hang in there and see where it takes you. So thank you for joining us. So today we are going to be looking at and potentially exploring, although, I can never promise where these conversations will lead. But what we are assuming is that we're going to be exploring what it means to befriend the unknown and to be with uncertainty, because to be fair, I am becoming clearer and clearer in my own life that is one of the biggest issues we have as humans, is not liking uncertainty, this resistance to uncertainty, the needing to know everything, the needing to be in control. And that to me is what creates suffering and pain. And well, maybe not always pain. I think pain is a given, but it definitely creates the suffering component and the I think our just endless searching and needing other things outside of ourselves. So, Adam, we'll see where this conversation takes us, but I know we started to scratch at the surface of it in our last one. And so today I chose a quote to start the show with from one of my favorite books that I have read on my journey. And I say that not because it's necessarily the best written or the one with all of the information that none of the others have. simply, it was the book that got me started on this journey. It really served as my pivot point, if you will. And I think for forever, it will be dear and near to my heart because of that. And I will always look to it as like, when I read The Power of Now, my life changed. And so that was for me, my turning point. And that will be the book I read a quote from today. So for those not familiar, this is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Adam, how do you pronounce it? I have now heard both as of late. So
I've heard both. I say Eckhart Tolle, but I could be equally wrong.
To be fair, so
I've never heard him say it before.
I haven't either. So for those of you listening, you can, it's Eckhart Tolle, however you want to say it. But these are his words, and I'm going to read these words. And then Adam, I'm going to ask you what they mean to you or what that brings up in you to get us started on our conversation. The mind, conditioned as it is by the past, always seeks to recreate what it knows and is familiar with. Even if it is painful, at least it is familiar. The mind always adheres to the known. The unknown is dangerous because it has no control over it. In other words, you would rather be in pain than take a leap into the unknown and risk losing the familiar, unhappy self. And I'm going to read that last portion again, because to me, this is the nugget. You would rather be in pain than take a leap into the unknown and risk losing the familiar, unhappy self.
That just pretty much covers everything that I could ever say about the unknown. So thanks for having me, Amanda.
All right. Well, Adam, it's been a great show.
Where do you go from there, though? From an Eckhart Tolle quote, that's a challenge.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see it the same way. I see it as something that we tend to naturally avoid because the unknown is terrifying. The outcome is just darkness. That's how I have seen the unknown, as just darkness, like trying to work your way through a dark passage and not knowing what's there, or just being in the dark in general. What I've found to be true in my life is that when I've trusted in the unknown, if I've taken a new path or made a choice that has led me in a new direction, it's always ended up teaching me something really valuable or offering me something unexpected that has made a big impact in my life. Yeah, I think that's where I'd start. I think
no, that's great. That's perfect, because so as you say that, this is so interesting to me, which is, and Eckhart says it a little bit here, that we would rather stay in the pain, which to me could be darkness. I mean, if we think about our lives, and sometimes the whatever we're experiencing can feel very dark, very heavy, very uncomfortable, and yet it's familiar. And so we stay in it. And this is what's I'm curious about, and what your thoughts are, is that why do you think why do you think we do that? Why do you think we stay with what is, even if it doesn't feel to be serving us? Because here's my assumption, is that the known is it's an illusion. Because just because I'm sitting here saying, well, I know what's going to happen if I stay here. No, I don't. I never know what's going to happen in this moment. So why do we, or what are your thoughts about, I don't know if you know why, but what are your thoughts on why we stay, or how the known really isn't the known? I mean, we don't ever know what's going to happen next, right?
There's comfort in familiarity. And that's what we're trying to hold on to. It's not the known, it's the familiar. Because even though a lot of the time the familiar doesn't serve us, we know it to be within our comfort zone, within our realm of what we can take on. So I think that's why we clutch onto what we know, even when we know there's so much more for us out there.
Yeah. And so what was that like for you? I mean, you pointed to, you've taken these steps into the unknown, and then you've had these unexpected moments, experiences. What was that like? What did that look like? What did that take? What did it feel like to do that?
Well, my journey started when I was traveling 10 years ago in Australia. And like we said in the last show, one of the aspects that was significant to me was surrendering, this concept of surrendering. And for me, it was surrendering to the unknown. So I remember thinking, okay, well, my life up to now hasn't led me to where I want to be and hasn't led me to feel the way that I want to feel. So how can I give it up to the universe or to life and trust that the universe will show me what I need to know in order to move forwards, to be the person that I want to be? Because there's no one single person that can lead me in that direction. I don't know the answer. So almost in a moment of desperation, I just kind of reached out and said, life just show me. And I remember at the time thinking, I'm happy to be a completely different person. I'm happy to be, born again within a religion, or a complete atheist, or, come back with completely new opinions and to drop old stuff, and was completely open to anything. And the result of that was I was led toward the unknown. I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I remember knowing that I needed to accept whatever came to me. So that was the unknown. That was delving down that kind of dark alley. But it didn't feel like a dark alley to me at the time, because when you've got the contrast of how things, of your past, which, well, this doesn't work, then it's trusting in what life wants to present to you. And the result of that was chance meetings with people that taught me something that I really needed to know, or were able to touch upon things like that were unsettled in me, and experiences that just led me to coincidence after coincidence after coincidence. And so kind of being okay with not knowing what was coming led me to kind of go, if I just trust in the unknown, good things will come, because I trust that good things will, so I'm happy to venture into the dark with that in mind.
Yeah, there's so much that you're saying. A couple things are coming up right away, which is there's this this concept of, seeing in the dark, because you're right. The unknown can feel like you're walking into the darkness or the dark alley. And yet, I actually have a client, and a book will be coming out that I could probably be quoting this from soon. But the concept, I'm sure, exists already, which is, this idea of how to become comfortable in the dark, or how long do I need to be in the dark? And the answer is until you can see in the dark, right? Which, if you think about it, our eyes adjust, right? You think about walking into a dark room, and if that is for you the unknown, if you stay there long enough, your eyes will adjust and you'll start to make things out, and you'll start to see things take shape. So I think there is that component of, it doesn't always have to feel dark and scary and looming. The other thing I'm hearing you say is that there's this, first of all, it took this willingness to surrender, this trust to go, okay, I'm willing to move forward into the unknown. I'm willing to surrender to what's coming. And then you also said that you then needed to accept whatever you were greeted with or met with. And I think for many of us, and I'll be curious what your thoughts are, if you have any on this, in terms of, some of us may say, okay, I want to surrender. Look, I've surrendered. I can't do this anymore. And then there's still resistance, or there is still this, like they're still stuck. And I think what I'm hearing from you is, it might, the key to that, or maybe part of the magic in that is where we are accepting. So when we do surrender, if we're still holding on, like, but then I want this to happen, right? Or I'll only say yes to these opportunities. So talk a little bit more about like the accepting. And I think we talked about this in the last show a little bit. Maybe we can go in deeper here of, again, that how do we know what to say yes to and what not to say yes to, right? So when we're trusting, when we're willing, then what does that acceptance look like? How do we I mean, is it everything that comes your way is a yes, or what do you do in those moments to navigate it?
Mm-hmm. Good question. I like the word acceptance.
Mm.
I love the word acceptance, actually, but I also like the word allowing, and I think that that's an apt word for this. Like allowing what needs to happen,
Mm.
um, without the resistance. And that's where the acceptance comes in. You're absolutely right. Um, and then
Yes.
acceptance is another thing, I think, because it's only with hindsight that we realize, oh, I get why that happened now. And you're able to connect the dots as to why that situation happened. And at the time, it just felt like, oh, why is this happening to me?
Right.
And we all experience that all the time. Why is this? Why does everything happen to me? We tell that whole story. But if you're able to accept the unknown and allow yourself to move in a direction of adventure, it's a word that's been significant to me recently, accept the adventure, then it allows you to trust in what comes up for you. And that's
Yeah.
another word I love, just
Trust.
trust, it's all happening for you. It's not happening to you or at you.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And I think as we can have hindsight and we look back and go, oh, and if we can take a moment to acknowledge that, and sometimes that's the first place to start. I think that was one of the first things I did. I was very, thanks to Eckhart Tolle, I learned a lot about this non-resistance and non-attachment. And through practicing some of those ways of being, I noticed myself doing some exercises like, let's look back in my life and when did things occur that at the time I may have been like, what? And what just happened? Why did that happen? And now I can connect the dots to your point. And by having that for my mind, because it's the mind that is limiting me at times, right? It's the mind that's getting stuck and being like, ooh, I don't know about this. Are you sure about this? Are you really, can you trust in that? And if I can't quiet it down on its own, I sometimes will use it to get on my side, right? I will say, okay, look, I'm going to bring you along the journey and I'm going to show you, we're going to analyze this. We're going to take a look at all the things that have happened in the past. And we're going to see, oh my goodness, if this hadn't happened, and if this hadn't happened, and if this hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am today. And now I can start to see how life is supporting me, how the world, the universe, God is supporting me. And through that data, in my left brain, I can start to relax and trust more. And I think that's so pivotal for trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you work? I mean, you work with clients, I'm sure talk to friends, you're with people a lot. And how do you approach this idea of trust and surrender, and when those fears arise, or when because what I'm sitting here thinking to myself is, it's now that I've practiced it's one thing, but there was a time where, boy, it was scary, and I still witness myself and others. Certainly it's easier to see it in others and ourselves at times, really not be in a state of surrender. So what do you offer? What do you think or say in those times?
Well, there's no black and white answer really to that. Everyone's different and everyone has different resistances, different levels of trust that they need to incorporate into their lives. I suppose what comes to me is the more you do, the more you understand what's possible, and the more you can incorporate new habits into your life. Because we believe what we see an awful lot of the time. And so when we prove something to ourselves, then it becomes the norm and it becomes part of that comfort zone that we talked about earlier on. So that's where I would start with a client, is actually to start to get them to implement certain practices and actually take certain risks, because nothing starts without a leap of faith. When people start coaching with me, that's a leap of faith. I'm ready, let's do this. This is scary, but let's do it anyway. So just doing, just, accepting the adventure or accepting the challenge, or however you want to perceive it. Begin there. And along the way, things will come up for you. The resistances kick in when you're trying to do. And it's at that stage where, for my clients, I'm able to figure out why that's coming up for them and try and get to the root of that problem or that challenge. Nothing's a problem, and the more we understand why we see things the way that we see them, the less power they have over us, so we can continue to move forwards. But certainly one of the things that I've realized is rationally knowing something is not as effective as knowing something and believing it and living from that place. Because we can rationally know things. Yeah, I know I need to leave that job. Yeah, I know I shouldn't be with that person, or, whatever the situation is. But until you know it deep in your core, and that becomes a belief and a part of who you are, then nothing really changes.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with the leap. You've got to take that leap to begin with, just to start the journey, and then you can build up the momentum.
Leaping into the unknown is what
Mm-hmm.
will give you the greatest knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Because to your point, we can sit here and think it logically, rationally, knowing it. And I 100% agree. There is a difference when we know it in our beingness, and that is only through experience. That is only through doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that encouragement.
But it has to start somewhere.
Yes. And it doesn't have to necessarily start with the biggest thing. I mean,
No.
I quit my job with no plan B. That was my
Mm-hmm.
leap. And I took a big one, and
Mm-hmm.
and I chose to dive into the deep end.
Yeah.
And I have learned many things through that. And I have received many gifts. And to this day, I feel like I can never unknow what that's like. I will never unknow what it's like to be fully supported by the universe, to know that things are happening for me. Equally, it doesn't have to be that large, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
or what are your thoughts? Tell me more.
Well, my experience is that a leap of faith is generally towards something big. Like, I need to make a big change. And for me, like, pulling myself out of my comfort zone was traveling solo. And I knew that was something that I needed to do at the time. But it was daunting, and it was more about what other people were telling me. They'd say, "Oh, you're so brave doing that." Like, really? Am I? And it makes you start questioning yourself, whether that's something that you should do or you're capable of doing. But I remember thinking, no, I know I have to do this. There was something in me that just knew I had to take that leap. And the thing about taking a big leap of faith is that it's not like jumping off a mountain. You do take small steps to get there. So for me, I thought to myself, okay, I want to go to Australia. That's what I want to do. It's a big jump. I'm going to leave my job. I need to figure out, I need to book the ticket, and I need to find out where I'm going to stay and where I'm going to go. And I don't really know. Like, it's all the unknown at this stage. But I thought, well, I know on my lunch break, I'll go to the travel agent and look at prices, which I did. And actually that was quite enjoyable, because I got to feel my way a little bit, and maybe it is, affordable. And when I'm there, perhaps I'll ask, well, what's a good place to stay at? How do other people do it? And then you start, building up an idea of what it's going to look like, but gradually. And so a leap of faith is small steps, in the same way that coaching, you take the leap and you sign up, but then, 8 to 12 weeks of coaching doesn't happen like that. You take the first session, you have the initial conversation, you build it up, you then get to the next stage and the next stage and the next stage, until hopefully you never need me again. You know, so a leap of faith is necessary towards a big goal, but it doesn't have to happen all at once. Like, just one step at a time, one day at a time can change everything.
I love that. I love that. And there's this image of, I mean, I'm thinking of, as we do anything that seems impossible or overwhelming, of course, we've heard this a million times in different ways, that it's one word at a time, it's one step at a time, it's one, you know, one thing at a time. And that's, I think there's a little bit of, it could seem like we're trying to gain control in those moments, like, oh, I need to know what's happening. And so it's still practicing for every one of those to allow, I think for me, to allow myself to still be surprised, or be, you know, be open and willing to allow the guidance for the next thing. So I remember, you know, thinking of it like breadcrumbs, or, you know, going on a trip, or when I left my apartment in San Francisco and I didn't know where I was going next. It's this thing of, okay, where next? Okay, now what? So maybe it is going to the travel agent, and then they're going to give me more information, and then I'll know what to take. So it's not planning it out, right? It's not sitting here and saying, I'm going to take a leap of faith next year. So today I'm going to do this, and then tomorrow I'm going to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
We still want to allow ourselves to have that state of surrender. But what I hear you saying is that surrender and leaping can happen in moment by moment, allowing, right? This moment by moment allowing, and then allowing, and then being guided.
Yeah, I mean, my Instagram was the same.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Well, no, please keep going.
No, my Instagram was the same, in the sense that it was actually a friend of mine said, your writing's great, why don't you share it? And I thought, well, I've always wanted to, but it's quite scary, you know. Just do a post. Yeah, well, that's okay. I mean, who's going to see one post? I'll just do an article, you know, and I won't share it with my friends. Yeah, great, I'll do that. And you put it up, and you didn't die, and you didn't get any horrible comments or anything. You think, well, I'll do one the next day, and then the next day, and then you develop a following, and I'm getting good feedback here, and then the next day, and the next time, maybe I'll do a video. Cringe. And then you know, and you gradually get better and better and better until you're on podcasts, and which cringe. But you know what I'm saying? You know, it's none of it has to happen all at once. And coaching actually came about as a result of my Instagram account, and people coming to me and saying, well, actually, I love what you write about, it really resonates with me. Do you offer advice? Do you offer mentorship? And no, but maybe I should. So I'll do a post to say, if anyone's interested, I'm offering a free consultation. And then it grows, and, you know, and again, surrendering into the organic nature of how things can happen.
Yes, I love
It's changed
that.
my life. It's changed my life.
That was the question. Yes, and that was going to be my question. So you're already answering it. So feel free if there's more. Otherwise, there's I'd love to ask a follow-up there. Like, what has this practice of surrender over these years, you know, how has it changed your life? What does your life look like, feel like now that it didn't 5, 10, however many years ago?
I was unconscious before I went to Australia. When I say unconscious, I was conscious, I was alive, but I wasn't aware, you know, I wasn't consciously aware. And so prior to that, the concept of surrender meant something quite different. And I suppose my journey has shown me what surrender can mean. I think that's probably the best way I can answer that question. And I suppose it's not changed all that much over the years, but it's just that I've learned to trust in it more. So, like we said last time, you know, it's a way of life. But the more I do it, the more certain I am that I can trust, and I can surrender, and I can let things flow easily. Things don't have to be a fight. Things don't have to be forceful, you know, and actually I can just move with ease and let things kind of happen the way that they want to. And the ironic thing is that even though I hadn't planned to do this work, kind of there was always a part of me that wanted to. and I never foresaw me having the capabilities of doing it, and certainly not speaking on a podcast. I was so I was not an eloquent person prior to only a few years ago, and that's come about as a result of writing regularly and learning how to express myself. And so again, just surrendering to my curiosity, like maybe I'll just do some journaling today. Sounds like fun, and sometimes it starts with that, just an inclination, like that'd be fun. I could do that. I might draw something or pick up a guitar and that can change your life. And it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel constructive. Like, well, I really should be concentrating on work right now. If you don't, work isn't the only constructive thing. And I can go on a bit of a tangent about that stuff.
I love it. Well, I'll use this moment to interject and ask.
Yeah, please do.
You said earlier, you made this almost offhanded comment. I said, ooh, wait, let's go back to that. That when you first went to Australia, as you were prior, unconscious, meaning unaware, and we might call it sleep or whatever you want to say, that you surrender meant something different to you then than it does now. And I'd love to know if you can recall, well, what did it used to mean and what does it mean now, or what? And I know we've already been talking about it, but if you could, put it into a few words.
Yeah, no, sure. Well, I mean, prior to that, I suppose surrender meant giving in to someone or something, being weak. I surrender. Don't hurt me. I surrender. And I never gave it much thought, really. But I suppose now, thinking about it, that's how I would have heard it. So, yeah, the meaning of the word surrender has changed dramatically in my life. I don't need to be subjugated to surrender. I can just surrender to what is and surrender. And that's a huge part of my meditation practice as well. It's just kind of embracing what is. It's become a huge part of my life. And it's still a work in progress,
As we are. Yeah.
But every day I have to remind myself to surrender. It doesn't just come like that, like naturally, easily. But I have to choose to live in that place every day.
And now there's a power in it, I imagine, because I think of, I've had that same experience where surrender felt weak or, giving in. Even the word acceptance for a long time had that quality to me, that essence of, well, if I accept what is, I'm giving in, I'm rolling over, I'm going, oh, wow, okay, do what you will with me. That's fine. It's this very passive, it can feel very passive. And I remember my aha moment where accepting what is, equally surrendering to what is. There's a very similar quality there. One of the most active things to do, because it does, to your point, take active conscious choice and awareness. We, I think, by default tend to resist and kind of fight back or push or control. That tends to be our default. So if I really want to be more actively engaged or involved in my life, more conscious, I am making the choice to accept, allow, surrender. And that I think is a paradigm shift for a lot of us to go, oh, it's not weak or passive, it's active and powerful. That's cool,
I heard we were talking about Eckhart Tolle, and I heard one of his meditations not too long back, actually. And he was talking about just sitting and not forcing anything, not trying to make anything happen with your mind, not trying to force it to be still, but actually just embracing whatever comes up and noticing the sounds around you and noticing whatever sensations come up in your body and almost associating from them. And kind of say, as and when things come up, just kind of acknowledging, well, that's interesting. That's okay. That's there. And I did a meditation earlier on, and I had the window open, and I heard an ambulance or a police car or something, and the siren was going off, and I just thought, that's interesting. It's not racket if you just look at it. It's not. Do you know what I mean? It's not
100%.
unpleasant. It's not unpleasant if you can just kind of embrace it, absorb it, and you begin to feel like you're part of it. You're part of your surroundings. And you sort
I
of
wish
fall
I
into a
could
nice little
remember.
void there. It's lovely.
I think it was Ram Dass. Forgive me for interrupting. Ram Dass had this. I've listened to a lot of Ram Dass talks. They've been recorded probably since the 70s, 80s, not, and they're being released as podcasts. And he, in one of them decades ago, was doing his thing and giving his talks and speaking all of this wisdom into the room. And there was this very distraught child who started crying and crying and going on and on. And this was right toward the end. He was about to make a really, beautiful point, and he stops and he breathes with the child, and we all hear it. I mean, there's no silencing that child in that moment. And he acknowledges it, and he says, wow, breathe that in. That's free energy right there. I mean, that's just like, take that energy and breathe it in and embrace it, be part of it. That is, and he said that.
Isn't it beautiful? A crying child.
Energy. I mean, that is free energy given to us if we should see it that way. But we so want to control and push away. And this is now, once again, we've now led into our third conversation, because now this is where we're going. But that's it. This idea of, I think even those of us on a spiritual path or on a self-realization path, or whatever you want to call it these days, self-development, there's even this tendency to still control and manipulate and make known and, see things the way we want to see it, or experience things the way we want to experience. And this is a constant, I don't want to say dilemma. It's not even that strong for me. It's simply something I'm aware of. I notice it a lot, and I either notice it in myself or I notice it in others. And I'm with the question of it, like, so how am I still trying to control, manipulate, assert my own, this is what I want to have happen, all out of, because I don't know, I don't want to be with the unknown or the uncertainty, right? That kind of, I'm trying to guard myself from it. Yeah. So I hear what you were talking about in that. I think that's I believe Eckhart is why I learned how to meditate, is because of I didn't have to do anything specific. I just had to be.
Yeah.
And when we can be, then we can allow whatever is into our experience.
That's it, into our space. That's what we don't like. Something is in your space, that siren or that baby. Oh, it's just in my space, and you feel like it's actually in you and on you. And I just want it away from me, but it doesn't have to be that way, and you can welcome things into your space. And these, I mean, those examples that we gave, they're not really anything that's going to really affect your life. It's just a tiny detail. It's just a minor thing. It's not important, really. And can you be the person that notices yourself getting drawn into the mind, when you hear the sound, and for goodness sake, and then catch yourself and go, okay, well, I'm just gonna absorb this. I'm just gonna allow this just to receive it, into my space and accept it. That's okay. That makes a huge difference.
Yeah. The moment, I think it comes from The Power of Now, where Eckhart says, the moment you realize you are not present, you are present. Or the moment, for me, I use that to go, the moment I realize that I'm getting caught up in my mind, my head, is the moment I'm present. Like, that is the act of presence and the practice of presence. Yeah. And it's, for me, to tie it back to being in the unknown, is we must be in the now. We must be present to enter the unknown. I mean, and it almost sounds silly to say that, because let's just be honest, we're never not in the present.
No, that's right. I mean, that's the truth. Yeah.
Wherever our mind is, our mind, the unknown is only scary when we are worrying about, kind of dwelling on the past or worrying about the future.
That's right.
The only time the unknown has its power over us. Otherwise, it's here and
It's
now.
not very often. It's not very often where we're in the now and we're actually in grave danger. That happens like hardly ever.
Yeah.
So it
And when
is
it
just
does,
the thought of it, isn't it?
you
When it
know,
does, it's too late. It's too late. It's
it's too
just
late.
happened.
And then you deal with it. And then you deal
Yeah.
with it, right?
And
There
then
was
you deal
no
with
need.
it
Like, I always think,
calmly, hopefully.
yeah, hopefully. I mean, most people are like
Yeah.
worrying about what might happen. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I got to be honest, the moment you actually do burn your hand on the stove, you'll just deal with it then. You didn't need to
Yeah.
worry about burning your hand.
No, that's right. Yeah. No, and I'm still one of those people. I still get caught up in it all, and you know, but that's why it's so important to show up every day and do your meditation. And I know I go on and on about meditation, but like it's such a huge part of my life, and it really does just, it gives you the space to just step back into who you are and not be quite so sucked into everything around you. And you can then approach the day differently, consciously. It's not about, like you say, presence. We're always present, but it's, are we always consciously aware? I know I'm not, but I hope that I can be, throughout the course of my day. And I catch myself like, oh, I just zoned out then and started to actually, and my mind started playing tricks on me, and, and catching it before it goes off on too much of a tangent and brings me down, because
Yeah.
it happens all the time.
Thousands and thousands of times a day, probably. I forget how many thoughts a day we have. So anyway, something like 60,000. I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah.
So many
Yeah.
thoughts that
Yeah.
can
Way
take
too
us
many.
away. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How many thoughts do you think Eckhart Tolle has in the course of a day?
3.
Like
No,
3
I'm
or
kidding.
4
You know what? Here's
tops.
my, and I don't know, Eckhart, if you want to come on the show and talk to me, you can absolutely can, because I have a feeling that Eckhart has many thoughts, at least a good
Oh.
amount.
Hmm.
I think what he has learned or practiced or embodies at this point is he allows the thoughts, because that's the other thing
Hmm.
is I am now I'm at a point currently where it's not for me about getting rid of the mind and the thoughts. It's really,
You
can
really
I allow
can't.
them to be there and
Yeah.
allow it, and then let them go and allow them and let them go, and sometimes use them to my advantage and sometimes to my disadvantage, whatever. And then I allow
Hmm.
that and I embrace that. Right. So it's this,
Hmm.
I wonder if, although when I witness Eckhart, he is, you can tell he's very present. There is not,
Yeah.
he's not
He's
pre-planning,
so
right?
grounded, isn't he?
So
He's not
present.
anticipating the future.
That's right.
Somebody said to him once, "You're so patient," and he said, "Really? Yeah, you're so patient." And he said, "Oh, I never saw myself as patient before." He said, "But then I suppose it requires effort to be patient, because you need to be not happy where you are in order to have to implement patience for the next moment." He said, "I'm always kind of happy where I am, so it doesn't require patience to just be here."
100%. I love that.
He's
Well, I
amazing.
love that.
He's
Yeah.
amazing.
So for those who haven't read him yet or watched him, then this is an invitation. And
Mm,
because we could talk for another 2 hours, maybe even just on Eckhart alone, let's bring it back. So is there
sure.
anything else about the unknown that you would like to address before I turn it around and ask you a few more questions that you've already answered once, but I'll see what your responses are today?
Sure. Um, um, a really nice practice is to sit with the unknown. Just sit with it. Just find a chair or sit down on a pillow and practice just letting your mind go and your body go, and just allowing whatever wants to come up to come up. And it's a great practice for allowing the unknown to come up, because we want to try and control ourselves, don't we? Control our thoughts and our minds and our discomfort. But how can we just be in that unknown? Oh, what will happen? What will happen? You know?
Mm-hmm. I love it. And I agree 100%. That is such a great way of practicing it. And in every
Hmm.
moment, if you find yourself sitting in the car or sitting at work, you can do this too.
Hmm.
You don't have to carve out extra time. I think I'm a big proponent in it, and you can find yourself throughout the day. Can I sit? And I remember one of my other favorite Eckhartisms from the book is thinking the thought, what will my next thought be? And just
Yeah,
holding
wait
that
for
for
the
and
thought. Wait
waiting
for the
for the
next thought.
thought and see what happens.
Yeah,
So again, that's being with the unknown.
yeah.
All right.
I think it was
Wow.
Pema Chodron that said about uh, taking an inhale and then exhaling, and then at the end of that exhale, notice the silence, and then inhale again. And but that's the space that we're talking about, is that space at the end of the exhale where just everything goes quiet. It's a nice place to be, but you can't live there all the time. I mean, I say that maybe there are some people that can, but I can't, and I wish I could.
Life would be so dull, I would think. And that's
That's
judgment, of
true.
course.
Or
It's
would
such
it? I don't know. I mean,
well, and of course, as you say that, my initial reaction is, well, we can't physically, and I look to nature and I look to our bodies as learning devices, and it would be impossible. I use that word loosely, not to try to put a black or white on it. And yet, if you imagine, there is there always needs to be an inhale after an exhale. Now, there
hmm
can be times where you can retain that breath out for a long time,
hmm
sometimes seconds,
hmm
minutes, and that can be silence. And I wonder if our life isn't about, again, this is my opinion, not, maybe not dwelling in that silence forever, but dwelling in, expanding that space and that silence. And then there will be a
yeah.
time that we will need to inhale again. And then
hmm
there's another silence. You can actually retain your breath at the top of that too. And then so I agree. There's
Beautiful.
dwelling in that silence is definitely it's a blissful place to be.
Yes.
Okay. So let's ask a few questions of you, which things that inspire you and light you up. And
hmm
like I said, you've answered these before, but they may have changed or they may not have, and it doesn't matter to me. So in this moment, what who is a source of inspiration for you and why?
It's changed. Um, Tony Robbins, quite different, not so
I don't
spiritual.
remember your last one, so I'll have to.
Well,
Everyone listening,
there was
don't give
there
it
was a
away.
few. No, no, there was a few books that I recommended last time. Um, yeah, Tony Robbins. I watched I'm Not Your Guru for maybe the 10th time, and what really grabbed me about Tony Robbins was his sense of certainty, because you can tie it back into the whole concept of the unknown. If you can have a level of certainty around the unknown and delve into it with certainty, like, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. And I know it's gonna be fine, and come at that with a certain level of passion. Yeah. Tony Robbins is amazing. If you haven't checked out Tony Robbins, I think most people in the self-help world will have heard of him. Incredible, powerful guy. Lives from the heart.
Hmm.
Amazing.
Well, I need to say two things. One is, for some, I definitely have heard of Tony Robbins. I've seen some of his stuff, read a little, only a little,
hmm
and was actually
hmm
quite put off by it at first, because
Yeah,
it was at
most
a
people
time
are.
where I wasn't ready for that
Aha,
energy.
right. Yeah.
I didn't accept it in myself yet, right? So what we don't like in others is what we don't yet either accept or see or embrace, I think, in
Yeah,
ourselves.
that's often the case.
So his masculine, forceful energy, I was like, ooh, I don't like that about me. So I
Yeah.
don't like that about you.
hmm hmm
So it's interesting you bring him up again, because I do wonder if I would perceive him differently now. And the other thing is the beautiful paradox that where we living in the unknown with certainty, because I think we think those two things have to be separate, and they aren't. There can be a deep certainty and knowing when we're in the unknown, and
hmm
that's the sweet spot. So I love that was your example of why he inspires you. um,
Also, he's an influence that's different for me, because a lot of what I speak about and write about uh, tends to have a certain spiritual quality, I suppose. Whereas Tony Robbins is a spiritual guy, but doesn't come from that angle. and there's a lot more certainty in his work and a lot less surrender. But for me, it's nice to explore, different people's work, and because it's nice to find the balance. It's nice because life is only here to play with, so it's good to be able to have practices that that work, and discover new things that you can also implement within your own framework. But that's the thing with with the gurus and the coaches and all those guys, is they all have things to offer, and they all have certain perspectives, but and they all work, and that's the thing, and they conflict with each other, and it's just finding what works for you. So don't be afraid to explore different things, because you can take little bits and pieces from each of them, and there are some real gems out there.
I love that you're saying that. I love that you're saying that, because I know that is at least the way I approach it, is like more of the smorgasbord. I want to sample a little bit of everything. And there are others out there who contradictory will say, would say, no, find something and stick with it and be devoted. I believe both are okay. I mean, that's what I'm learning, is that works. And like buffet style works as well. I mean, and I love that
If it works,
life
if
is
it
here
works
to
for
play
you,
with.
do it. Yeah.
Life is here to play with. So let's enjoy the dance. All right. Second question.
Sure.
I like to ask, what place or activity is most inspiring you right now?
Place or activity. What comes to mind? I'm smiling because it's not an answer that you probably expect, but I'm listening to a lot of rock music at the moment.
Not at all.
So in terms of activity, that's something that I know I need at the moment. It's some heavy rock music. I like really heavy stuff, and I don't know why at the moment I'm listening to the music I'm listening to, because I'm not like I have to listen to heavy music constantly, but I have phases where I'm drawn to that kind of music, and I'm having that kind of experience at the moment. And I think there's an energy within heavy music which resonates with me at the moment, because I feel energized. So it's a nice indicator of where I'm at. And I want the adrenaline, I want the energy to move forwards at the moment. So it complements that at the moment. That's a really strange answer, right? But that's just what comes to me. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's
all
right. No, I like that. That's one I haven't heard yet. And that's why I love this question. And I love that you gave such a present answer for it. Like, this is what it is right now. Fantastic.
Simple.
It can be simple. That's the other thing. It doesn't have to be extravagant, right?
No, that's right.
All right. Now we know you love books. You love to read. So do you have a book that you want to, that's coming to mind right now, that has inspired you on your journey, that you want to share?
Yeah, sure. There is a book that I'm reading by Isira, Isira. She's an enlightened Australian lady from Adelaide, I think. And discovered her on YouTube, bought her book. I think it's called something like Dancing with the Buddha or something like that. Search it and you'd find it on Google. It's quite different from anything Tony Robbins would write. She has experiences where she is able to see other dimensions and see spirit and stuff like that, and which is all kind of new to me, that side of things. The energetic side of things I understand more about, but actually the things that she delves into, you have to have a real open mind to read that stuff. And there's a real truth in the way that she writes. It feels like the truth when I read it. So it's a really interesting read for me, because it requires you to drop any skepticism that you have in order to really embrace it. So, and I'm really enjoying it. She's a fascinating lady, and even if you just watch her on YouTube, Izira, she's a good one.
Awesome.
Inspiring.
Fantastic. Oh, I'm sitting here listening to you, Adam, and it's how I think I want to conclude this, or how I will conclude this show, is this reminder that we are all we all have our own unique experiences, gifts, expressions. The Tony Robbins, the Aziras, the Eckharts, the Adam Palmers, the Amanda Johnsons, the every single person listening and doing their thing and sharing their gifts. You know, we will all share it in the way that we want to share it, express it in the way we want to express it. Some will overlap, some will conflict or seemingly conflict, because that's the other thing, is that the more I am alive in this body at this point in time, I am recognizing that there is no one way, there is no two ways, there are as many ways as there are us. I believe always point to the same. That's a belief I do carry, that while Tony Robbins may say something different than what you're reading in this book, they aren't actually contradictory. They really are, I believe, pointing to the same
No,
thing. And I think, to me, that is what lights me up
you're
most.
saying.
Yeah, it's like, can we find the commonality? Can we find the oneness? Can we find the sameness and still relish and dance and play with the uniqueness? Because that's what makes it interesting, and that's what, you know, what allows me to be me and you be you. And I can chuckle and giggle when I go, huh, but we're all the same anyway. Like, what does it matter? We're
Yeah.
all the same. So I'm really in that space right now in my life of embracing that and allowing that, and seeing the miracles and the serendipity and the synchronicities and the joy and the pain and the sorrow and the bliss that comes with that, and being with it all. And
Yeah.
I'm so ecstatic that I get to have this with others who are also experiencing that. Like, what a gift to me. Thank you. So thank you.
You're so good at it as well. You're so good at what you do.
Thank you.
And you're a brilliant speaker. Yeah.
Thank you so much. As are you, Mr.
My pleasure.
Podcast newbie. You're just killing it now. You're killing it. We'll have you back for round 3.
Oh, thanks.
So
All
Adam,
right, sounds good. Yeah, I'd love
pleasure.
to. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Yeah, same. And thank you everyone for listening. I'm going to give my little shameless plug to be sure to subscribe, because at this point, I don't know how often or how many of these beautiful episodes I'm releasing, but they're going to be coming fast and furious, I feel. And so be sure to subscribe so you get the alert. You'll know when these beautiful conversations are released, so that you can be inspired to go out and express your unique version of who you are, while remembering that we all truly are the same in essence. And that, to me, is what this life is all about. Rate it, review it if you like the show. I want more and more people to have access to these conversations. I want people to meet people like Adam. Find him on the internet. I will put links there. Look him up, Adam Palmer Official, on most social media. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
So,
yeah, mainly Instagram. Yeah.
Great. Watch his videos, read his
Check me out.
posts, send him a message. Please, it would continue.
Yeah, I do. I read all my messages.
Yes. So do send him a message, and go out and be the light and be the love in the world, and make sure that you are, doing what fuels you and feels right for you. So thanks for tuning in. And until next time, many, many blessings.